feel like it looks so visually impressive, but really, you really didn't do that much. It was not that hard. Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm showing you a recipe for an icebox cake, and I was gonna say you don't have to turn on the oven, but you actually do have to turn on the oven, but that's just in the very beginning. But it's such an easy recipe. This is in my second cookbook, What's for Dessert. It is such a perfect summertime recipe, so simple, only a few ingredients, and incredibly delicious, perfect for stone fruit season. What's for Dessert is a book that's all focused on really simple stuff, and there's a whole chapter on chilled and frozen desserts, and in it I have a couple of icebox cakes, which is a style of dessert I love. The reason it's called an icebox cake is because it's basically a mixture of whipped cream and store-bought cookies, and you chill it, hence the icebox part. And it's called a cake because what happens to store-bought cookies when they hydrate in the fridge is they give off like a really cake-like texture, so you slice it like a cake. And it's just so easy and perfect and delicious. And it's also a make ahead thing. So there's just really every reason to make it in the summer. Super straightforward, store-bought cookies, some whipped cream, and some fruit. And that's basically it. Super easy. You're gonna whip 2 cups of cream. So it is easier to do that with a hand mixer or a stand mixer, either one. Here I have my loaf pan. I'm gonna assemble the icebox cake in the loaf pan. I also roasted the plums in it, and when the plums came out, I just rinsed it out to get rid of any fruit that was in there, and I left it a little bit damp. That's a really good tip. It helps the plastic to like adhere to the pan. So I lined it in plastic wrap. That's gonna help me unmold the icebox cake. This is a roasted red plum and Biscoff icebox cake. So Biscoff cookies, it's like a very crisp, light spice cookie. And it pairs really well with plums, which likes a kind of spicy flavor. So I have 2 cups of heavy cream, a little vanilla and a pinch of salt, some powdered sugar. Here I have my cooled red plum puree, which I went ahead and made in advance. I recommend you do too. The ingredients in the puree are 5 kind of medium plums. I have a 6th plum here, which I'm gonna use to make some decoration. And then in the puree goes also like a cinnamon stick or a piece of star anise. You could skip that or just add like a little ground spice. And then a 1/4 cup of demerara sugar. So there's a few ingredients in here already, but overall, very straightforward, and we're gonna show you how I made the plum puree. So to make the plum puree, this is where you need to turn on the oven. You're gonna have to preheat it to 350. Then you're gonna take your 5 medium plums, cut them in half, pull out the pits, shingle them in your loaf pan, throw in your star anise with 2 tablespoons of water, your demerara sugar, and then that's gonna roast in the oven for 45 to 60 minutes. You wanna bake them until the edges are getting really dark and the plums have basically collapsed. So it's already kind of like fallen apart. Then all you do is take that out, press it through a sieve, get rid of the star anise and the skins of the plum, and let it cool. And that's really it. So I've already done this so that it's cool because you don't want this to be hot when you make your icebox cake. So the first step really is making the plum puree, but I already did that. So the second step, prepare the kind of decoration, the decorative top of the icebox cake. So the icebox cake gets inverted when it comes out of the fridge. So whatever goes in the bottom of the pan becomes then the top of the icebox cake. Using my 1 remaining plum, so this is the 6th plum that you'll need. And by the way, these are red plums. That's really important for the color. You could use any kind of plum that looks good, again, any other stone fruit, but the color of the red plums is really beautiful. So I'm gonna pull out the pit, and now I'm gonna slice these into thin slices. And you just want these pretty arches, like a little rainbow. You can check out the video that we have when I make a tiramisu icebox cake. Check out that video. Another great one from the book. The tiramisu icebox cake is something you can make year-round, but definitely the plum icebox cake is something that you're going to want to make in summer when plums aren't in season. Okay, so once you've sliced your plums, I'm now going to layer them in my loaf pan. Make sure that the plastic wrap is like pressed really firmly into the pan so you don't get these like air pockets, which are going to then affect the shape of your icebox cake. And I'm just going to shingle these slices inside the pan, just kind of one by one. And I'm going to do 2 rows. Now it depends on the dimension of your pan. This uses a standard loaf pan. And it depends on the dimensions of your plum and how big it is and how thin the slices are. And if you don't want to just bother with like making rows, you could just kind of layer them in there haphazardly and it would look just as pretty. So I'm starting actually from both ends, and then the rows sort of overlap as they cross. But again, you could really do this any way you want to. The pan is prepped. My top is done. You can set that off to the side. Now I'm gonna whip my cream. We're halfway done, basically. So the cream is the base of the filling. And this is one of the great things about icebox cakes. The kind of most famous icebox cake is the recipe, if you can call it that, on the side of the box of Nabisco famous chocolate wafers, which they don't make anymore, and I'm pretty upset about it. And it was simply whipped cream and the chocolate wafers layered in a pan, and it was delicious, and I love that recipe.
Do you remember how they tasted?
Yeah, they're really good.
You could recreate them?
Yep, we should. Let's do it. Okay, so I have just 2 cups of heavy cream. Make sure it's cold. I know it's much easier to whip if you're using a large bowl like this. So I'm just going to gradually increase the speed. If you go full blast in the beginning, you'll splatter everywhere. Okay, so at first I'm going to whip this until I start to see the cream thicken and I get somewhere kind of close to soft peaks. I'm short of soft peaks, but I can go ahead and add my other ingredients. I have just a pinch of kosher salt. It's going to go in. Teaspoon of vanilla extract. Goes well with the plums, the plum puree, which has been seasoned with that star anise. Then powdered sugar. So now I want to whip this until I get firm peaks. I want to whip it so it's pretty stiff, which is going to help give some structure to the icebox cake. Okay. You know you have firm peaks when it holds the marks of the whisk, like the beaters, as it runs through the cream really tightly. So like that. See how it's, I mean, the whole thing is sliding, but see how it's not really like liquid? So that's how you know. And one reason we want to whip to firm peaks is because we are going to fold in our plum puree. And that's going to add a lot of moisture, which will loosen it up. So starting with firm peaks means we won't have a mixture that's like too loose to hold its shape in the icebox cake. So in goes your plum puree. Make sure it is at minimum room temp. Better if you can chill it for a little bit. And I'm just going to fold this in. Folding because I want to use a very gentle motion so I don't lose too much air for my whipped cream. That's it. Quick fold. Fun fact, this mixture, anytime you have whipped cream with a fruit puree folded in, it's called a fool. This is a dessert in and of itself. Take this mixture and like spoon it into glasses, and that's dessert, and it's delicious. We're gonna assemble our icebox cake. So here's my filling. I have my Biscoff cookies, and we're gonna start to layer it in the prepared loaf pan. So I'm gonna actually grab my cutting board again, because another thing that I like to do, it's a little fussy, is I like to trim the cookies so that they fit, so I have really like even layers. You could just break them apart, but I like to trim them. So I'm gonna grab my cutting board. For the first layer, the first layer is the plum. The second layer is just a half cup of cream. So we're kind of doing like a thin layer. And I have a cup measure and half cup measure just for kind of portioning. It doesn't have to be very precise. So that's going to go right on top of your plum layer. One reason I roasted the plums is because it does drive off moisture and concentrate the juices. And you want that to happen because you don't want to add so much liquid. Like stone fruit, summer fruit has a lot of water content, and you don't want to introduce that to whipped cream because you'll have this kind of like broken mixture. Okay, so I'm just spreading that cream in a single layer. Make sure you get all the way to the corners and to the sides. Now I need a layer of cookies. You could do them any way you want. Like you could do a row of them kind of going side to side, or like lengthwise end to end. It's really up to you. I kind of like the way that they look more end to end because we're going to cut slices crosswise. So I'm just layering in the cookies. So here I just have to cut off a little bit of the cookie on one side. Okay, so then I go ahead and press those down to make sure that everything's pretty level. So you can see that's my first layer of cookies. You want to cover the whole surface. So now going forward, I'm going to separate the layers of cookies by 1 cup of the filling. And what I want is to have 4 layers of cookies, each separated by a cup of cream. And then I can top it off with the remaining filling. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish that assembly. You won't have a full cup left. It might be more like a half a cup or somewhere in the middle. The idea is that like very first layer between the plums and the cookies, and now the bottom layer, because this is the top, which will be the bottom, are about the same. Okay, so we're done. It is assembled. What you want to do is take the plastic wrap, and one important thing, it's not a big deal if you didn't do this. You can always just use a separate piece. But I did make sure that the overhang of the plastic is long enough to fully cover the surface. I'm just going to take the overhanging plastic and just fold it up and over on both sides. I covered the pan the long way. I have very minimal overhang on the longer sides, but just do your best. And then you can kind of flatten the surface, because when you invert it, that's going to be the bottom. So this is going to go into the fridge, and you want to let it chill in the fridge for at least 12 hours, and that's going to give the cookies enough time to hydrate. So when you cut into the icebox cake, you don't want to cut through like any crunch. You want them to be totally softened. You could do up to 2 days, but after that, the cookies kind of overhydrate and they end up kind of like disintegrating. So at least 12 hours. I have one that I made last night. So it's been chilling for about like 20 hours or so, maybe less. And I'm gonna pull it out so we can cut it and take a look. So here is the icebox cake I made last night. So to unmold it, pick out whatever serving platter you want, and then go ahead and uncover it. Yesterday I didn't have a piece of plastic long enough, so I had to add an extra. So now we're gonna invert it. You can take your platter, put it over your pan, then flip the whole thing over. And now is where the plastic is really key, because you're gonna use it to help you kind of dislodge. It can kind of like become like suctioned in there. So I'm gonna hold the plastic down. Oh, actually that came off really easily. And now you have the beautiful reveal of your plum pattern on top. So I'm just gonna pull off the plastic, peel that away. I feel like it looks so visually impressive, but really, you really didn't do that much. It was not that hard. The plum did all the work. The plum looks great, and it got kind of juicy, and so it's like really glossy and beautiful. This dessert does what I want every dessert to do, which is like over-deliver in terms of effort and then outcome. It's so beautiful, no frosting necessary, it's like very beautiful presentation, but very low effort. So I'm gonna cut it. Best to use a serrated knife, mostly so you can get through the fruit slices on top. That part is a little bit delicate because you don't want to like smush the whole thing. But here I want to show you, you see the 4 layers of cookies, nice definition. And you can kind of see the texture. If you look in close, it literally looks like super thin cake layers. And that really is the texture that it gives you. Well, first I'm just going to taste a little bit of the filling. So good. I love it so much. It's so light. It's everything you want in a summer dessert because it's fruit forward, it's cold, and it's light. So it's sort of like checks all the boxes. It looks like cake. Also that light spiciness from like that little star anise or cinnamon stick kind of perfumes the whole filling, and it goes so well with the warm spices in the cookies. Really what helps is that Biscoff cookies are delicious, so you're like standing on the shoulders of the Biscoff cookies here, but the plums, you could eat the whole piece and not even realize it.
It's very rewarding, very simple, low effort, big
Yep.
reward. Make it this summer for all your friends.
Vinny said it. That's it.
All right.
Like and subscribe. Truly the ideal summer dessert. It is a roasted red plum and Biscoff icebox cake. The main effort is just waiting 45 minutes to an hour for your plums to roast, and then it's so easy from there. major delivery in terms of like presentation and serving, and could not be more delicious. So good. Light, fruity, cold, easy. Said 4. Thank you so much for watching. Check out What's for Dessert and the easy, simple recipes in that book. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This is a good cow dessert. Cow will like this. It's not very sweet.
Neither is cow.
That's not why. Better than I remember it.